What's wrong with Desmond Ridder? Is he too robotic and needs to be more of a gunslinger? My guest weighs in on whether or not the Falcons need to start thinking about a quarterback change.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And we thank each and every one of you that is an everydayer that checks out this podcast as your first listen or first watch each and every day. And of course, you know, if you don't know me, I'm Aaron Freeman, right? Very humble host. Been covering the Falcons for many years, formerly at FalcFans.com. RIP. RIP to FalcFans on Twitter. I need to change the graphic and get rid of that. But we thank all of you guys. And so, you know, everybody who wants to become an everydayer, make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So I am, of course, joined by none other than Will McFadden, who is the humble host of the Believe in Falcons podcast, another illustrious guest, always joined or usually joined by the most illustrious guest of Ovi Mihaly, former Falcons great fullback. But Will is here with us to talk about this unfortunate loss for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm sorry, Will, that you know, hopefully this is the worst time to talk, the first game the Falcons will have this year. But, you know, you were the unfortunate, you know, person who won the lottery or lost the lottery to have to talk about this Jaguars game. But how you doing today, Will?
So I'm doing well. Thank you, Aaron. But you just got my brain turning here. Do you think this loss was worse than the Detroit loss?
I think so.
Because I don't know if I'm ready to, like, I don't necessarily know if I believe that. I think they looked worse against Detroit in both defensively and offensively.
That's fair. I think that's fair. I guess for me, I didn't give up on their ability to win the Lions game until like 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this game, I was like, it's done.
That's
right?
true. That one was maybe like in the realm of possibility for like that pick six when it happened. I think everybody was just kind of like, oh, okay, so this is how today's going to go. Cool. Like, got it. And so it was easier to then just say, well, yep, we saw this coming from the second quarter on. It was bad. Everybody was just in their feelings. But again, I think there were some bright spots in this game that I'm sure we'll touch on. But
okay, that's fair.
I like where you started.
Okay. So I appreciate the feedback, and it'll cause me to actually spend more than 12 seconds thinking about some of the things I say on this podcast in the future. Let's talk about Desmond Ridder. And, you know, I'm curious to pick your brain on what do you kind of think is going wrong with Desmond Ridder up to this point in the season, or maybe if you want to make it specifically about this Jaguars game or, you know, the last two games, what do you think is sort of wrong with Desmond Ridder?
Yeah. You know, first I'll preface this by saying a lot of people should go check out on YouTube. JT O'Sullivan has a channel called the QB School where he pretty much does this deep dives into quarterback play around the league. He shows clips, he diagrams the plays, and he, as a former NFL quarterback for many, many years, knows exactly what he's talking about. And he did a really good breakdown on Desmond Ridder and just kind of the Falcons offense writ large against Detroit. So, you know, some of the stuff that I will say here, I'm kind of copying from him, and I'm doing a much worse job. So you guys should just go check that out yourselves. It'll make you, you know, much smarter about kind of what to look for. The obvious thing is that he's just missing too many throws, too many of these throws that when you connect on them, they're huge momentum swings in your favor. The Falcons, outside of Bijan Robinson, offensively, like, really don't have any of those. this year, like there's not been, you could say in the fourth quarter of the first two games, right? When, Desmond Ridder connects to, who was it, Mac Hollins and then Kyle Pitts. Those were big, like end of game, cool. Like, yeah, this thing is going in our favor. We're going to seal the game. The last two games, they've been missing those. The start, obviously, against Detroit with Kyle Pitts, the one that got him yelled at on the sidelines this past Sunday. So those are just kind of glaringly obvious. And it's not just the deep shots. He's dirting balls that are like 7-yard kind of curl routes. He's missing throws on the sideline. He's missing not by, the widest of margins. It's easy when you see it totally go over Drake London's head because he's huge, but just the difference between, is this a back shoulder throw? Is this a fitted into the window on the boundary? Is this a leaping basketball catch that Drake London likes to make? Like, you can't even really get a read for what is it supposed to be here. So all of that is very worrying, but that part's also correctable. I think the biggest concern for me is Desmond Ridder seems as though he's kind of way too happy to just check the ball down, which I have advocated on Believe in Falcons, that he should take some of the free yardage when it's given to him. But now the offense has only become these passes to the flat or, a curl over the middle, a slant that he got the interception on, like kind of these middle tier, or you've got two guys who are just running a deep route. And when those aren't there, it's kind of like, well, what do you do? So that's my transition into saying part of the problem is Desmond Ridder, but I think part of my problem too is, for as creative and as much as I love the Falcons' run designs, I've never really been the biggest fan of the passing scheme. This is not the connected tissue like you see in San Francisco or in LA. Like the run game and the pass game feel disjointed in a way this year that it didn't even last year. Like at least last year, you kind of saw them marrying very identical looking plays. And then you would have that kind of deep shot down the field to a Michael Pruitt, somebody you didn't even really realize would be in that position. And that's kind of the beauty of some of that trickery. This year, it's almost too much trickery in terms of like who you're getting involved at the expense of your best players. Like Kyle Pitts and Drake London should not be utilized this infrequently. And that's another thing that I thought was going to be great with Desmond Ridder, is we saw him just lock on to Drake London last year in his 4 starts. And I was kind of all for that. I was like, get the ball to Kyle Pitts, get the ball to Drake London, get the ball to Bijan Robinson. Now it feels like that's a coaching point, because Marcus Mariota wasn't really doing it that much either, like going to his big name guys. So I don't know. It's scheme and it's player to me at this point.
Okay. I know Arthur Smith in his presser on Monday after the Jaguars game talked a lot about the slow starts. Mm-hmm. And, I think specifically against the Jaguars, the slow start was an issue, don't get me wrong, but I think probably the issue that most people had from that game was what happened in the second quarter with some of the decision making that Desmond Ridder made. And that may be something that I'll talk about potentially tomorrow when I break down the all 22, but I do want to pick Will's brain on whether or not, these struggles that Ridder has especially gone on these last 2 weeks, leads him to think that the Falcons should be, potentially looking to, pull the plug on him and make a quarterback change. And we'll get into all of that, guys, as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Buying tickets to your favorite sports events shouldn't be stressful, and Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets to all the sports, music, comedy, theater near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guaranteed. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront, so you know you're getting a great deal without any hidden fees, and you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So continuing here with Will McFadden of the Believe in Falcons podcast. And let's talk about the possibility of making a change at quarterback. Do you feel like the Falcons should make a change at quarterback and or should be on the verge of making a change at quarterback?
No, not at this point. What I think they should do is they should change kind of how they're asking this quarterback to operate. I think they need to change the offense with this quarterback in it. Right now, what they're doing, it's not working. That kind of speaks to, what you said earlier about Arthur Smith saying he needs to get this thing kind of jump started. They've not found the right chemistry for the pieces they have in place. That doesn't necessarily mean they have the wrong pieces in place. I would like to see them just get a little bit more creative, like truly throw some stuff out there and see what you can do with it before I'm ready to just totally pull the plug, because I don't know if you move away from Desmond Ridder, I don't really know if you can go back to him, and you got to figure out one way or the other what you've got in Desmond Ridder this season. And again, it's not like I know he's got moments that are horrible. He's also got moments where he rips like a 3rd and 17 dig in like triple coverage with anticipation. And you're like, oh, okay, wow, that was great. Do that again, And so you do see it there. Like there does seem to be a leadership quality, whether or not that is as strong now as it was a couple of weeks ago, maybe remains to be seen. But I would like to see them tinker with the offense a little bit first, just try some different things. But what about you, Aaron? I mean, are you ready to see Taylor Heinicke?
No, not particularly. Taylor Heinicke is a turnover machine. It's basically what I'll say. That has been his MO as a NFL starter. And, there are highs with Taylor Heinicke and there are lows with Taylor Heinicke. And, it's a bit of a roller coaster. And I think right now, for me, my biggest concern with Desmond Ridder is stop turning the ball over. And then we can build up the rest. If you can just not make the game-changing mistakes, like we'll figure out the rest, right? With time, right? Hopefully. But I don't think that problem goes away with Taylor Heinicke. Like I know in the 2 years that he was in Washington, he did not go more than one game. He never had 2 back-to-back games where he didn't turn the ball over at least once. So,
yeah, he's got some gunslinger.
Yeah,
I mean, for sure.
And it's fine. Like, we might get to a point in the season where the Falcons will need that spark, but I don't think they're quite there yet.
Well, I mean that is though one aspect, because at the beginning of the year, right, we were all saying if Desmond Ridder can just kind of be like a point and shoot quarterback in this offense, like just put the ball where they tell you to put the ball, then everything will work out. I kind of wish he was incorporating a little bit more gunslinger into his play. I kind of wish he was saying, nope, that's not there. Got to go to plan B, got to go to plan C. It feels very much like he's plan A to a fault, because like that's where the play is supposed to go at times.
Okay, that's fair. I don't know if I agree with you on that, but I certainly think, for me at least, I could probably swallow the bad plays easier, if you get my drift, if you had more good plays, right?
Yeah.
It's like, again, the Mariota coaster, then the metaphor I used last year a lot, where it's just like you get the highs, you get the lows, it's just hopefully you get more highs and lows. And I think that's eventually, if Taylor Heinicke is the quarterback, then I think that's eventually what you're betting on, and maybe the Falcons get that. But for me, I'm at a point where I'm just like, I don't want the lows anymore, and so I don't really worry about the highs yet. I'll worry about the highs once I stop getting the lows, and I think that to me has been overwhelmingly my main issue watching Desmond Ridder. These like every game, there's like 2 or 3 throws where it's just like, what are you doing, my guy? Like you're throwing the ball directly to the opposing team, and a lot of it has been stuff over the middle with like dropping linebackers and safeties biting on throws because he's staring it down. And that's been, to me, especially problematic, because so much of what Arthur Smith wants to do offensively is throw the ball over the middle. And that's hurting And then part of me thinks, well, you can simplify and go to play action, but they just really have not been that effective running play action. Like that was
Not
the
at
thing
all. Yeah.
with Mariota last year, where it was like, well, yeah, he's okay because the Falcons are really good with all the play action stuff that they dial up. And even going back to the 4 starts last year with Desmond Ridder, their play action wasn't that productive last year, but you just figured, okay, well, he's still young, he'll figure it out. And now we're like 8 games into it, and we just really have not seen the play action passing game get going at all with Desmond Ridder. And so I don't know if that's a solution, because I really thought that was going to be the thing that sparked them against the Lions. They tried it. It didn't really work. So, eventually I think we're going to run out of possible solutions, but I think we got a couple of more weeks before we need to be like, well, we've exhausted all the possible variables, and now it's clearly the quarterback is the common denominator here, and we have to make a change there. But we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, we know that the Falcons defense is probably going to potentially keep them competitive in that amount of time. And so let's turn the attention from the negative with the Falcons team, at least the feelings surrounding the quarterback, to some of the positives with the defense. And we'll get into that with Will McFadden here of Believe in Falcons as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. Snap into the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Is a great place to bet on the NFL, because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on that action. The app is safe, super easy to use, plus you get paid quickly, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. If you want to bet Bijan for Offensive Player of the Year, or C.J. Stroud, or you want to bet the Falcons in their upcoming matchup against the Houston Texans, where they are favored by 1.5 points. Falcons haven't been great against the spread, but maybe you'll feel better about them at home. Or you can get in a last-minute bid on this Monday night action between the Seahawks and Giants, where the Seahawks are favored by 2.5 points. Whatever you want to do, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. So, of course, guys, I am here joined by Will McFadden of Believe in Falcons. Check him out on Twitter at Will McFadden. And, of course, we appreciate each and every one of you guys that makes this illustrious podcast your first listen. We'll shout out to all the everydayers out there that subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. And, of course, if you subscribe on YouTube, please give us a like. You will get the video version of the podcast the night before the audio drops. But, give us those 5-star ratings on your preferred podcast app as well. But talking with Will McFadden here, let's talk about the defense. And, they were very good. I know you and Ovi talked quite a bit about that on your post-game reaction show. But for those folks that didn't check out Believe in Falcons, I'll give you the floor, Will, to talk about what you liked about the defensive performance in Jacksonville, what you like about the defensive performance so far this season, and what you potentially like about the defensive performance moving forward this season.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things when Ovi and I were talking before hitting record. We were like, we have to spend, I know we got to talk about Desmond Ridder. I know we got to talk about these slow starts, but like, we've got to spend some time on this defense, because like, they're the best part about this team, and they're a good part of this team, period. There's no asterisk. There's no, except they got to get this part cleaned up. Like, of course you could say that the pass rush needs to be better, and it does, but they're kind of making do without that pass rush. They're still limiting opponents, from scoring, which ultimately at the end of the day matters. Sacks are a great way to get off the field. It's a much easier way to get off the field and may create a turnover in the process. But if you get off the field, then kind of you're doing your job, and the Falcons are doing it kind of the hard way, but they're doing it. And I think they're doing it in a sustainable way. They are very good at taking away opposing teams' passing games so far. They faced the Detroit Lions outside of that one busted play where Sam Laporta gets wide open. They kind of shut them down, or at least held them in check. Same thing, a busted play to Calvin Ridley, but by and large, I know Christian Kirk got his, but you held Trevor Lawrence in a pretty potent passing attack largely in check. So the biggest thing to me that's like really been impressive, and it's something that when you look at the offensive side of the ball, I would like to see them an offseason where they do the same type of thing on the offense. it's all newcomers, man, for this defense. Like the guys who are really, really, I feel like making these plays, it's your David Onyematas, yesterday, Calais Campbell, Caden Ellis, against Detroit, Jesse Bates, like the player of the team so far. Like I even think Jeff Okudah last week or on Sunday really played well in his first start back. He had a couple of moments where he missed tackle or whatnot, but I thought he played confidently. I thought he looked smooth. He was pretty versatile. He kind of did all parts of his game pretty well. So that was a big standout. Like they're just getting production from all levels of the defense in a cohesive manner. And for that reason, like they've got a really, really big test this week, which I never, ever thought I would say. And I know we'll get into a little bit more, but it's actually like a legitimate test for this defense. But I feel confidently with them heading into it, which again is not something I necessarily expected to be saying at this point in the year.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair. Like, yeah, I think Houston can do some things that can certainly challenge this defense, and we'll see if they're up for the challenge. But I don't have the level of trepidation that I've had in the past, obviously, and even earlier this season, where I was like going into the Packers and Lions and Jaguars game to a certain extent, being like, okay, well, the defense has been pretty solid so far, but do they come back down to earth this week? And maybe they do come back down to earth, but I don't think that is really a blemish on their record so far. So I agree 100% there with you, Will. And, while I've said, we need to get a little bit more out of the pass rush, that has mostly, to me at this point in time, like that is a January problem. Like I'll worry about that in January because I feel like the pass rush is going to need to be better if we're playing games in January. But right now we're so far away from worrying about playing games in January that I'm more than content with what this defense and this pass rush has done so far this season. And I'm definitely looking forward to what Jeff Okudah can do now that he seems like he's getting back into shape. And I feel like, that's going to be one piece of this defense that kind of unlocks potentially them to reach a different level. So I'm looking forward to what this defense can do, over the next couple of weeks. And I think this Houston team is going to be a great challenge for them. And based off of that, as we look ahead a little bit to the Texans, and I'm sure we'll, as the week unfolds, you'll probably be looking deeper and deeper at this matchup, but at least sort of your preliminary thoughts on sort of what aspect of this matchup are you looking forward to? Is it, C.J. Stroud against this Falcons defense?
I mean, that's one of them. I also am very much looking forward to our rookie, Bijan Robinson, against a pretty bad run defense. Mm-hmm. So there's aspects to watch on both sides of the ball. But, one of the pieces that I write for the Falcaholic is a look ahead at all of the remaining opponents on the Falcons schedule. And it's just kind of briefly touches on each one. But because the Texans have been the week 5 opponent, I've made it a point, and they played Jacksonville, and there's been some common opponents. I've seen a lot of Houston, and the more that I watch them, the more I want to watch them because they're a really fun team. And CJ Stroud, he and Anthony Richardson are blowing me away as kind of rookie quarterbacks. I know Anthony Richardson had a rougher game this weekend, but I think they look pretty solid as young quarterbacks, which again makes you look at what's going on here in Atlanta and say, okay, well, how quickly should we be expecting this to click and come along? And that's going to be pretty stark contrast on Sunday, or at least it could be. So defensively, as much as I was just praising, the Falcons, there's a real test again here for them. You've got Nico Collins, who is just setting the league on fire so far this year. He had a huge game again last week. Tank Dell as a really electric rookie. They've got Robert Woods, who's kind of been forgotten about with those two guys. CJ Stroud is a very smooth rhythm passer who can attack all parts of the field, not dissimilar to kind of what we just saw with Trevor Lawrence. They are not afraid to put it kind of anywhere on the field where they feel like they can. And Houston will attack you in a lot of ways. And then they still have Dameon Pierce, who was awesome last year as a rookie. So when we said that this was going to be a big test for Atlanta's defense, it really will be. But then on the flip side, if Atlanta's defense can figure out some, if there's a throw the kitchen sink light game, like this might be it defensively for Atlanta. You do have a rookie quarterback, but he's been playing well. If there's a time to really go into your bag of tricks, if you're Ryan Nielsen, if you're Jerry Gray, and do some stuff where you can force some turnovers, that is where I think Atlanta can play more of a ball control, run dominant offensive game plan, because Houston's run defense has been pretty iffy so far this year. They've gotten some turnovers. Like they've been a pretty fortuitous unit, which has helped kind of feed into that offensive identity. But if the defense can lead the way and kind of, again, create some turnovers to fuel the offense, I do think the offense can wear down this defense, and you'll start to see more of the 30-yard runs that we saw from Bijan in the second half against Jacksonville. I think you'll really see those kind of start to come up quickly. And then Tyler Algier and hopefully Cordero Patterson, and you start to see the path to victory for Atlanta.
Yeah, I think that's a really insightful analysis. It's, you should do a podcast about the Falcons, Will.
Wow. Could I come on with you a little bit more? Okay. Would you have me on? I think I need a little practice. Actually, you need to come on Believe in Falcons. You want to do after the Texans? You want to come on next week? And we'll revisit this conversation, and we'll see, how we did.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think that's going to be the key. I think I said it earlier on the Atlanta football party on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Well, no, I didn't say this on that. I wanted to say it on that episode, but no, I think I did say it. Oh, it doesn't matter. I talk so much that I don't remember when
it all runs together for me too.
Yeah. But I think the difference, this is interesting with the Texans and C.J. Stroud versus the Panthers with Bryce Young, where it's like, Bryce Young's a rookie, and I think the Falcons, their game plan quickly in that game was like, we're not afraid of Bryce Young, so we're going to sit back, and if he can beat us, great for him, and but we don't think he can. And I don't think you're going to play that style against CJ Stroud, because I think he's shown more often than not, going up against some pretty solid defenses like Jacksonville and especially Pittsburgh, that he can beat you if you sit back and do that. So it'll be interesting to see what Ryan Nielsen cooks up this week to try to throw a wrench in that, and that will be probably something that will be discussed on this illustrious podcast as the week unfolds. But also, I think you're right with the run game, and I think the Falcons are going to have to play the style of football against the Texans that, if you rewind the clock several years, the teams used to play against the Falcons, which is, we're going to run the football, we're going to control the clock, and we're going to make sure that Julio Jones and Matt Ryan and all those guys are on the sideline, and they can't hurt us if they're on the sideline. And I think that's going to be the Falcons strategy. And I think the Falcons running game should be able to do its part. The question is, there's going to be some throws that the quarterback's going to have to make in order to sustain that type of offense. And will he make those throws? So that's going to be the big question this week. But I think that is the blueprint for the Falcons to get a much needed win at home later this week. And I'm sure, Will, you'll be talking about that all week long on Believe in Falcons, as well as the Falcoholic. So go ahead and plug, what other things you may be bringing up on those two mediums.
Yeah. Well, again, I am really excited and serious about this home and away. So I look forward to hosting you next week for our recap chat. So be sure to check that out, because you all know and love Aaron, and he does great work on this platform as well.
They know me. I don't know if they love me, but they know me.
To know you is to love you, Aaron. But yes, on the Falcoholic, I've got Bird's Eye View, that kind of look ahead will come out on Thursday. We'll have the second weekly episode of Believe in Falcons coming up on Thursday, trying to nail down a guest. A little behind the scenes podcast life, looking for a guest. Here it is, Monday. Need to land one. So TBD on that front. And then got takeaways and stock up, stock down, which dropped on thefalcoholic.com today. So go check that out. And of course, you can follow me at Will McFadden on Twitter.
Okay, that's it, guys. Appreciate you for tuning in. Always appreciate Will for joining us. And we'll be back tomorrow with an all 22 review here on this illustrious podcast, and probably talk about the slow start and the poor decisions that Desmond Ridder made. We'll talk maybe about some of the defensive stuff, other things. Maybe we'll talk some solutions that maybe will help jump start this offense. That's all potentially on the table for tomorrow's episode.